Good evening. Out of the Mud Productions Incorporated, connected and protected, and I'm Dehru Mitchell. Today I want to go with the one word, ambiguity. Has a great deal of meaning and a whole lot of paradigms that it incorporates within itself. People will not believe the structures of these societies that have been placed in a wide range of ambiguity. So to start, ambiguity is a quality of being open to many interpretations or exactness. It can occur in a variety of sentences. A sentence that can be interpreted in more than one way, puns, a form of ambiguity that can be used for humor, double meanings, a form of ambiguity that occur in words or phrases, and literary works or literal works, pieces of literature that can have multiple possible interpretations. And those are left open to anyone who reads it. And usually they are so entangled that it boggles the mind to get the truth and a single perspective from them. And I find that ambiguity was used in every aspect of the systems of America, the governmental structures, even the indoctrinate, indoctrinating procedures that they use to confound people to make them not know who they were. There are still aspects of ambiguity that needs to be undone. And the biggest factor in that is that they figured it never get done by those who they considered ignorant, inept, um, unintelligent, and then they gave us the title of being savage and uncivilized. But for the most part, we learned and we are still learning. But now we're coming to a point where the time for using what has been is at hand, and it's going to be imperative that we know what to do with what we know. For the systems that they have structured and have utilized for so long are at their end. 2025 came in as the year of it accentuated itself with being a um, let's see, with being a year where love would come, and then all of the laws that we have had natural but unused because they were circumvented ambiguously because they used all that we do against us. So those things that were quite natural to us, they just inserted a few ways of it being misinterpreted so that we would find ourselves questioning ourselves and each other. They came in and distorted all the laws that we had used for eons of time amongst each other, giving us the ability to share ourselves, share with ourselves all the abundance of this land that we occupied, the territories that we had cordoned off for certain groups because we, you know, just used a certain amount of trading areas per tribe or per nation, and those were always being, I say, demarcated, but they were always being changed because as they pushed their way onto the land, they moved us further and further from it by force. And so, as we were, as I said, encroached upon and re- relevated to other spots, they called them reservation. You know, I went back and found a way of saying some things. Um, you know, I got something from what was it, All Saints Church. The pastor, the video was titled "This Pastor Speaks and Upsets a Whole Lot of White Folks." Um, you know, he began by stating that there were things that we take for granted was always available to everybody, but they weren't. It's like the projects that were built that they call projects. They weren't projects then; they were low income housing or no income housing, but they were built especially for white people, and black people weren't allowed in them. Then government made things accessible to white people uh, that was in that income bracket and raised their income level and their just say acceptability amongst themselves, which we were never involved anyway. Um, so the projects, as they moved out, we were able to move in, but where they moved to, we couldn't move to either. Uh, there were many times that we, and this is one of the things I found so ambiguous, ambiguity, that as I was growing up, you know, why did we have to gain civil rights when the Constitution said that all men were created equal and we all had those rights? Then, I mean, of course, I later that we were never included in the Constitution in the first place. It was written for them, by them, and they were the people spoken of when it said we the people. And those truths that they held self-evident was was that they could plainly see that we didn't fit into it. Because if we did, then government would have truly been for the people and by the people. And if we had had our say, they never would have, you know, overtook and had dominance over this land because we would have had a voice, a vote, and a way of being counted in the fact that we were 20 to 1 in the population. So how could they be majority and we a minority? You know, they put it down. They put it down, and this is an ambiguation also, that everyone but us were white. So they took in all of the other ethnicity and put them in that category. And they changed up our category so often that we became less and less and less a one people. We became many people. We became black people, colored people, Negroes, Afro Americans, and now African Americans. So how many people still are entitled any of those names up until 1985? And that's when African Americans came into the picture. And yet, on record, there are all of these other people who are yet Afro Americans, Negroes, colored people, and black. Even though black is making a resurgence too, to claim an awful lot of people into that category. So to say that is to say that none of those titles, classifications, uh, whatever else you want to call them, has any relevance in law. Because until you get back to your Aboriginal and um, organic people to the land, you have no standing on which you are connected to the land. And they found every which way they could contrive to take you away from your ability to be connected to the land. As a matter of fact, in front, they said you didn't exist. You came here and found a whole lot of empty space they could occupy, but yet they had to remove you from it to occupy it. They had wars and more and more and more wars. They classified those. They documented them. They called them. They called us Indians, which we weren't. We were the people of the land. Indians came from various other groups of people that they also brought in and intermingled with a few of the tribes and put them down as the major portion of the tribes. They got the ability to sign documents in lieu of the rightful tribe doing so that they did not have to keep the treaties because they actually gave a little incentive to those who were the $5 Indians and so on. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Uh, they found a way to say that we were so irrelevant that they could undergird the peasantry from Europe and give them a financial basis and structure in this country while they were taking ours away because it was all about the land. So they brought them in, they gave them land, and they taught them how to farm the land, which took away our dominance and our agricultural trade, which not only did they depend on until they found the methods and means by which to do so themselves, but we also depended on it. So when they took us off our land, we had everything from poverty to starvation. And believe me, we did a whole lot not to go extinct. Because that was, first of all, one of their main reasons for doing the things that they did. They cared, they didn't really care. It was just that we had other ties to other lands, and those other lands knew what was going on because in most cases the same thing was going on with them. And this is why they look now to us to take away the distortion, this all this, and they're watching very carefully to see how we're going to do so and what's going to be the results of us doing it. Take away these ambiguities and take away the distortions and the brutality that came along with their invasions, re, uh, their resettling of people from lands to lands to lands to propel a paradigm of people having to be subjected to everything that they could think of because they would always get what they wanted if a person or if a people had no ability to say no. And the only ability we had was to be dead. Then you don't have to say anything. But then at the same time, they did not use that as a finality. They used that as a way to say, look, do or don't. And in which case they oftentimes found that you would, because not being able, most of the time you had to leave too much because they didn't kill everybody. Those that are still bearing the trauma of generations still have those same understandings of what will occur and can occur. And it is still occurring, in those in so many subtle ways that they say you can interpret it any way you want, but we're going to give you this as an interpretation of it. You know, we always had from the doctrine of discovery, we've always had the right to kill you, subject you to perpetual slavery, and so on and so forth. So we changed the methods by which we would do so. We changed the methods by which we explain these things, and we changed the method by which we would do them to the extent that you know now you're able to make a meager living for the masses. And don't get me wrong, this is not just black people or melanated people. Those who came over here that were basically penniless paupers, and they called them paupers from their land. They had no other choice than to take the positions they were given also. Now they may have been better than ours because they came with them. I mean, who won't do better for their own people than they would do for someone else? And this is why I don't understand today why we're so against each other as to not assist each other in coming back together, forming a understanding, a collective mind that says no one is any higher than the lowest one in the tribe or the lowest one in the nation or the lowest people on the land. Even though I agree, a whole lot of us have to clean ourselves up. We have to come back to a level of understanding. Everything just don't go. There's no ability to arise out of the mud if you're going to wallow in it and think you can keep a bunch of it in your pocket and not give yourself any chance to get a little, because once you start taking steps up out of it, you're not going to stop. You're going to find you like not being in the mud. You like not having to wash it off on trip by trip basis. You're going to have to track through it a couple of times to get away from it altogether. And then you have going through the mazes they have set to claim to have some higher degrees of knowledge or better skills, which is no more than you would get in any training facility that you found your aptitude in and utilized it and practiced it and became better at it and able to use it on a consistent basis. And you know, everybody ain't got them. That's why it was so easy to have a few as token because you could relate to the many. The many could relate to the few they put in token positions with the skills that they had. But then they would also take those tokens and instill in them a sense of hierarchy. They would give them other knowledges of how they plan to do things, what these plans would allow them to do. And those who were in those positions would utilize them to the fullest to the extent that they made themselves so useful to the structures that came about that they allotted them a certain amount of prestige, a certain amount of accolades, which said, "Hey, this person is great. They, they have a mind, a mentality, a way of doing things that we have to give them credit for." And in a lot of cases, those same people accelerated and gave their businesses a higher ability to be um, accepted and competitive with each other, and the ones who usually had those people in those tokens positions got dominance because they would market to the consumers that saw people like themselves in a position but they actually felt kind of obligated to give those people their business. The whole country is all about business, you know. So you look around, and now you see. Well, I'll get to that. You look around and you see some of the most prominent businesses who's who's included in their higher realms of um, the structured industry. You know, and sometimes you'll even find them at the head, in the forefront, leading the pack, and they don't know. I, I assume they still don't know that they could be done away with in a moment's notice. Nevertheless, some have so many gain, so many points of stability. It doesn't matter, you know. I often wondered why the general. Oh, I never did get to his books or anything. But Adam Clayton Powell, the general, he didn't want to be president. Wonder why not? You know, generals with his kind of acclamations usually did become presidents. You know, if you look at it, well, George Washington, for the first, he was only a general till he usurped the government of this land. They won't tell you anything like that. They go around usurping governments all over the world. Call it democratizing a certain land, a certain people, certain continent, or a certain country They want to do whole continents. Others have told us, hey, keep that crap going back over there where you're being. Otherwise, we can do what we got to do. And they haven't done so yet because their power, their strength is just as much as theirs. Even though they would say we're still the strongest, huh? No, we're not. Because a lot of us ain't willing to go and join in with that. You know? Like I said, it's this year we're going to get even further away from it because all about us coming into the knowledge of ourselves, us coming into the knowledge of the way this universe works, how we fit into this universe, the way that it guides us, leads us to it leads us to be more and more in tune with ourselves and less desirous of the assimilation that they would like it to be. You know, I don't know. There's going to be a time when I'm going to have all of this stuff in line, in order. I'm going to come to a compendium with grammar, all of these things searched out, put them together in a consistent order, and be able to relate them like most of the people doing these big time videos. Me, I'm enjoying myself. I get a chance to espouse some of the things I know, things I've learned, and I also get a great deal of release from the pressure of all of this research that I have to do. When I come and looking, when I can come and look in some faces and say, "Look, I did this out of it. I did get that out of it, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen." I'm not putting out all that. It's a bit much. You know, I alluded to more than a few things in my previous video, in my previous podcast, so that I'm still taking certain things that I mentioned and going into further depth with those things. And like I said, I'm going to put them in a consistent order so that when I do give it out, maybe in 4 or 5 episodes, that it'll make sense. Because sometimes, for me to even go into the research that I do, which I'll just state is going behind and finding that other people have done so much research that I can't refute anything. I'm in agreement with it, and I'm still quite stymied sometimes how they found some of the things that they researched because I guess it is coming more and more about that information is being released because this system is coming down. The way that it was structured is breaking up. And because it's being known by the minds that intuitively have always considered these things. And now they have factual knowledge of it because it's been so documented. And they can find those documents there in the public now. They used to be hid away, they used to be archived, they used to be uh, uh, vaulted, all those things. They would, you know, from the time they took them from what Alexandria, what's the other one? Timbuktu, all the great, even the lies they told when you know they said they got this information on their own when other because of the lack of ability to communicate and transfer those communications across generations, across countries, and so on and so forth. Like you find the Greeks often taking credit for so much. But then the founders of the Greek civilizations told them, look, we went to Egypt. We studied over there in the black lands. We studied from those black people who had the greatest amount of knowledge, so much so that we can't get it all. And then we took off from them those structures of knowledge that we have. We call it hermeticisms and Taoism and all of these other isms and this and we became ists as far as Luciferianism. We became what get jumbled up in my own head sometimes. That because it floods in once I get started. But sometimes it floods in to the point where it just washes me away. I try not to allow that to happen too often. You Um, so to slow it down and to come to a point where it makes sense, you have those they call Satanists. You have those that are called occultist. Those ISTs at the end, which mean they practice some of those things that they consider unknown because they're within secret society and other aspects and other organizations that were not open to any any of us that is anybody. Most were often threatened to death if they divulged any of this information. And that's how it became such a secret society. Because if you gave it out, they'd find you and you'd meet your demise because of it. And I heard the new terms now is they would make you unalive. That's cute. Yeah. Um, wow. And, and soon I'm going to be open. I'm going to go to the extent that I'll be going live. I'll be giving out. I'll have people coming in with questions so that I can stay on track with some of the things that I'm speaking of until we get a good understanding. People can, you know, do some of this research themselves. Help me out if they would. Oh, there he is. Um, let's see. Oh, maybe. Uh, I was just okay. I was just looking through this. I couldn't quite figure out what I did with it. In this age of nine, uh, we come to, like I said, 2024 as of nine, and it's going to be the end of consumerism and the end of capitalism. It's going to be a beginning of the age of humanitarianism. That's big. That's a big long word, and it engulfs a planet of people. And this Number 9 year is going to encompass a lot of the spiritual laws. The number nine is the number of universal love, laws, eternity, faith, universal spiritual love, life, laws. The law of attraction, the law of request, the law of regress, the law of resistance, the law of reflection, the law of rejection and projection, the law of attraction of attachment. Okay, yeah, that's a big one. The law of attachment, the law of intent of attention, laws of flow, law of abundance, law of clarity, law of interaction, the law of prosperity, law of manifestation, law of success, law of balance and polarity. Number nine, spiritual awakening, s- service to humanity, humanitarianism, and the humanitarian who does light work. All of these things are coming online this year, and you'll be surprised at the abundance of people who are going to facilitate these things and the abundance of people who's going to be moving out of the way for them to be facilitated. And this is going to be a great, great year. You find, and as I was saying earlier, that, you know, we have sorted out a lot of the ambiguation that has given us a whole means of confusion, distortion, delusion, illusion, and all of those things that we've come up to and learning ourselves to be who we are and learning ourselves to be greater in the multiplicity that we have enjoined ourselves in, that we kind of keep a little secrets now ourselves. You know, we've decided we're going to do in the means by which we do. Nobody else, everyone doesn't have to know. As long as we know we're doing it for the betterment of ourselves, our people, and those that we love, whether they want it or not. Because a lot of them can't understand what has to take place for them to even get out from under the blanket that they've been covered in, almost virtually smothered under. But we're going to bring them back to life. We're going to give them a breath of fresh air and a little abundance to breathe because we're going to work out some of those very basic things that will meet those needs and give ourselves the ability to put one foot in front of the other and strive for ourselves and our betterment without having to meet anyone else's approval or disapproval for that matter, because we've always disapproved that being our ascension, our ability to rise back up, and our ability to have actually what we've always had and couldn't use our ability to take care of ourselves, produce for ourselves, and be ourselves. We're going to meet on that even plane again. You know, some said it was a plane of war, but they discounted the fact that we saw peace amongst ourselves and we sought peace amongst ourselves. And now, when we find that we can receive and achieve it, they go to, and I'm going to say a point bottom line, lock up the innovators of those things because they want to give us a spoiled outlook in the same manner that they always have, to say those in those greatest positions took the lowest degraded ability that could be taken on children, which is mm, a damnable lie. I mean, surely they did take enough people into their fold as child abuse. Child, I'm just good. For me to think about how many ways they use children in this country, always have, even to the extent of just point blank stealing from hospitals and whatever, and doing whatever they wanted with them because you had no ability to find them afterwards. You know, that's how they. That's how they got the profit from Haiti, Puerto Rico, Brazil, all those places where they took the natives from this land and took them over there to enslave them. And then they brought in a few Africans. They counted them up and multiplied them 50 and 60 times over. They stuck them in a few of the tribes and let them interbreed with them. And then all of those said, okay, you know how fertile we are. So the more children came out, the more they had that they could say were Africans. But they never were. After after you mix your blood in, you're never again that one. You're a mixture. So that's how just say 500 became 5 million, over years of time, you know. And then how to they figured out how to make those things accountable to the extent that, you know, if an African married a slave woman, had children by that slave woman, then the children became slaves. Now you get two people and the family ends up with 12 individuals. 11 of them are slaves. Only that one who chose to stay, which made him the 12th, was able to not be and could have went on, and some did, and became those ones that were prosperous because they had minds. We never were ignorant people. Yes. But those that already knew how to interact with the Europeans, already knew how to, you know, if given a chance, acclimate themselves, assimilate themselves, become knowledgeable of their ways by study. You understand? Which a lot of times they did more remembering and recounting and then practicing on their own as to how to speak and what to say in terms of communication. And they taught in secret, which was very, very little and in sparse groups. But as you could see, they proliferated through time too, and they became now what they call certain organizations, certain groups. You could say they are those sorority groups, those you know uh, college branches of people who got certain teachings through those sororities that allowed them prestige, privilege, and persona. We'll get to that another time. And persona to have so much in common as to say they were blood related. We'll get past the ambiguation to disambiguation next time, you know, because to give a certain amount of clarity to the merging of how these systems, these engineerings, these social leadings, indoctrinations, the oppressions, suppressions, subjections, and so on, so forth, lead to what is called a zygote. Now, you notice that word starts with a Z. That's the last letter of this English alphabet. So in front of that is all the other letters. But just to give yourself an idea, see if you could spell it the way it sounds. Zygote. Then look up that definition and explore the various paradigms that are included in it. And you'll find, I think, that the major one or the major two is fear and war. And its only opposition is the natural people to the land and love. So, they're totally separate. There's a whole lot of ambiguity in that. Take for yourselves, if you desire to, the time to look into it. You know, you can go into it in various and diverse means, such as understanding that all of these things connect to the mind, the spirit, and the soul. And all three of those are combined in one energy. And that one energy never goes in, it doesn't change from itself in the fact that it is energy. It might change in form because it inhabits the mind, the spirit, and the soul. It actually makes them function. It actually is them in their level of vibrational frequencies, so much that you can come to a understanding of you can come to an understanding of yourself when you seek to, you know, deal with your personal energies. They'll give you full knowledge of themselves on whatever level they are. You know, some you'll have to actually kind of tone down around others, but in in every aspect, you should be able to raise your level of energy to reach the highest level, so you can deal with things on that plane that most people don't reach. And with that, I'm going to say, you know, take that one word, ambiguity, do the thing to it. Disambiguate. Disambiguate. We'll find out where we're at after that.